Hey guys, this is Catching the Mind, episode 5, and this week we are tackling the topic of trust. And just want to say a quick thank you to Jeff for coming on our show last week. Obviously that was an amazing insight to share, even though I personally related a lot to what you had to say, on and off. And just really encouraging to see the fruition of what can be revealed from just having a simple conversation. And honestly, this week's topic of trust, for me personally, trust is a big thing, and I'm sure it is for all of you at home, but not only with other people, but within yourself. Trust can be a big thing there. And I think with me, trusting myself was always a difficult thing with my personality, and so obviously I had to change a lot in my life to regain my own self-trust within my own situations, within regards to my impulses. And I think I finally figured out the way to control them, and because it works for me, I'm definitely so much happy with myself, and now because of it I trust myself more. Anyway, I'll lead you guys on to Jaden and Gabrielle. Thank you for joining us, and hope you guys have an amazing week ahead, and keep happy.
Hey guys, this is Jaden speaking from Catching the Mind, clearing the mind one couch talk at a time. Today's episode 5, we'll be talking and focusing on the topic of trust. I think trust is a very touchy subject, in that you can easily lose it in a particular relationship, whether they've misused their trust, and whether you have a lacking of trust within yourself because you just doubt yourself too much, and there's no confidence there. Trust is such a broad topic, but it's something that needs to be brought up, and so we can help people, I guess, develop themselves better and regain trust within themselves and anyone else. But today, with this particular topic, I've got Gabby with me, and she's going to be sharing her stories of her trust. And that's all I've got to say. Discretion warning. What you may hear today might be quite confronting, but Gabby's just going to be open and honest, and to the point where she's still comfortable talking and sharing. That's all I've got to say, and I'll let Gabby share her story, and I might intervene every now and then. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Jaden. Thanks for having me. I think it is really an important topic to talk about, like you said. I think, and not just specifically in relationships, I think you really come across trust is tested in different aspects of your life as well, whether it's work, your workplace. I also think the decisions that you make in your own life, and trusting yourself to make the right decision. And I think that's really tough when you go through transitions in your life. When you feel the most anxious, but you need to kind of draw on your own values and what you know about yourself to make a right decision in that situation.
Sure.
I think specifically with relationships as well, it's not something that's really talked about.
No.
Within even our age group as well.
It's easier said than done in regards to, say, for example, you were to lose someone's trust and other people were to hear about that. It's easy for them to judge it, but they don't actually know the ins and outs of how this mistrust had come about.
Yeah. And it's such a personal and extremely emotional, I would say maybe roller coaster, but everyone's experience is different, and you'd only hope that, every person, every relationship wants it to be smooth sailing, but oftentimes it's not. And sometimes it does come down to lack of trust, and whether I think you know yourself as an individual to then be in a relationship as well and build on that.
Do you mind me asking when you maybe lost a bit of trust within someone? Was it a specific scenario, and from there you struggle to trust other people because of that?
I think I've in the relationships and experiences that I've had with people, I kind of lost myself, I think, in ways, and we just weren't communicating openly. And I think one of my key values that I always go back to is transparency in communicating openly. And I think that's where I kind of lost trust in a particular person, you know, in experiences that I've had.
Yes.
So that's been really tough. And in that situation, then I felt like I was alone and I couldn't talk to anyone.
Yeah.
Because it was so personal and I was afraid to kind of reach out.
Well, sometimes you're actually protecting the person that has lost your trust.
Yes.
But going back to what I just said, because you don't want them to be judged.
Yes.
For someone that could be someone that they're actually not.
Yeah.
But this has just come about, and you know, yeah, things like this happen.
Yeah, and I think I've had experiences the times that I felt really low, and I felt like all trust in a relationship is gone. I kind of think back a couple of years ago. I listened to my favorite podcast. Actually, it's second to yours, obviously.
Oh no.
Has been Do Life Better podcast.
Yep.
Really amazing podcast, and they have a lot of different professionals come on there. And one of the main exercises that I really got in touch with, and I think I did this exercise only because I really need to keep my mind busy. I was really anxious and worried at the time.
Was it is it in regards to trust or just
in regards to like trust and where I thought the relationship was?
Yep.
I didn't think that it was in the right place. And basically, the psychologist had got on the podcast and he said, if you can write down the 5 things that you value in a relationship within relation to trust as well.
Yep.
And if you know that, if you know those 5 things and you could just list them off the top of your head, you know, that's an amazing thing that you've just done. You know, you've recognized these are the things that I need in a relationship. These are the things that are also important to me as well. And that can kind of, you know, reassure you that you know, you're kind of on the right track.
Yeah.
It is difficult though when you're quite anxious and you feel like you're really low.
It's hard to reduce your anxiety at times, and especially if you're not comfortable sharing certain things about a certain someone.
Yeah.
To family members or friends.
Yes.
I guess the fear of judgment.
Yeah.
Oversees it all. But if you can overcome that and it's really hard, because I know I can relate to that as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to name anyone in particular, but it is difficult. It could be in relation to an ex or to friends.
Yeah.
Or family. You know, like if you lose that lack of trust and then you want to kind of exert your negative energy and explain to others what you're feeling, then they sometimes will think worst case scenario, as opposed to, okay, this is out of the ordinary, like this is not how they usually react.
Yeah.
Maybe have a talk to them, maybe see how things go, as opposed to them just going at you going, no, this is not worth it, like, no, don't do it.
Yeah. I think also the closest people in your life will know you the best, but they'll support you through everything as well. And that's when you're caught up in a moment where you're really anxious or you're trying to get over things, sometimes you forget that. And also no one else is in your relationship. I think that's really important.
And that's the thing, you just got to remember that regardless of whatever someone has to say when you're explaining something, if you want to share what you're going through, you just have to remember that regardless of what they say, it's up to yourself. Yep. And it is difficult when it could all be negative when you're talking to mates, but it's up to you how you go about it, I guess.
Yeah. Obviously, it is good to converse with people, and I think that's so important. You do need to. That's just one thing that's not really spoken about a lot. Yeah. Like I said, because it's quite personal. But I know you touched on saying that trust is quite a broad subject, and it is. And I often think, like, you know, what is trust? You know, can you define it? Because
I don't know if you can, to be honest, because like I said in the intro, you could have a lack of trust with someone, whether it be a family member, mate, or a partner. Yeah. Or you could have a lack of trust within yourself. Yeah. If you're trying to achieve something, you just don't think you can get there because you just don't trust that you can. Maybe, for example, you're trying to play professional sport, and and you're actually quite good, but you just don't have enough trust within yourself to get to that next stage. You can't do it. And yeah, like you said, it's a pretty broad topic.
Yeah, I've kind of found, at least for my top 5, I'd list them as, number 1, communicating openly, and we spoke about transparency. And being on the same page, I think, is really important.
100%.
And having that conversation can be like so daunting sometimes. I've found that it's just you feel so vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what the other person's thinking, maybe. But I think that's like the first major pillar.
So much, but it's so much. You feel so much better having that conversation. You feel like weight is lifted off your shoulders because now you know that they know how you're feeling and you're both on the same page, as opposed to maybe leaving it and then a couple months down the track, things don't get better than they have been. Yeah,
exactly. And like I said, it's quite a difficult conversation to have, but it has to be done.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, but yeah, I also kind of found that you have to build trust. I think it's important to, if you make a promise or you say something, to stick with that.
Yes.
And be true to that, because you can get caught up in things as well, but you do have to trust that other person and keep your own word. I think is really important.
So we've kind of touched trust in the aspect of maybe not having that full trust within a partner or an ex-partner or a mate or family member, but having a lack of trust within yourself.
Yes.
Have you ever been faced with that at all?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I think for me, at least, the transitions in my life, whether I was leaving school and I thought I couldn't make the right decisions about like what I wanted to do, where I wanted to go, and that was an extremely emotional time. Because I'd always been quite an independent person, and and once I make a decision, I'm kind of like, I'll go all in and I kind of get it done. But yeah, I think at the times when I was leaving school, and I felt like I was quite alone, and I didn't trust myself to know where I was going.
So how come you felt loneliness?
I think just because I had so many things going on up until that point. And then to not have, as simple as it sounds, like not to have the same routines as I did. Not to have the same structures in place. I felt really, really lost. But to know that, I think what was really important was I started reading, I started listening to other people, and the best thing that I ever did was reach out to a family friend. And I still, see her regularly, and we chat about, how we're going. And I think that's really important. And sometimes, talking to a stranger or someone you don't really know very well can be quite liberating as well.
And how was it having that first conversation with a family member, especially?
Yeah. Oh, so this was a family friend.
Yeah. And how did you go with that first conversation?
Yeah, it was so overwhelming. Yeah. And I'd never thought that I would talk so openly to someone that I half knew. But it was, like I said, a weight had lifted off my shoulders, and it made me think that, a lot of other people are in the same boat. And at the end of the day, I think this is what you're trying to encourage here as well. And that's the most important thing, is that, it's okay to talk about things, and a lot of people are going through the same experiences.
I'm just trying to make, create a safe space where people are able to open up and share whatever's on their mind, because at the end of the day, like you said, everyone's going through something at some stage of their life. And it's having that ability to reach out to people if you need assistance. Trying to overcome that particular something.
Yeah, exactly. I also think about, when we're talking about making decisions and decision making, I think I've had to kind of tell myself that, nothing's ever permanent if you don't want it to be. And kind of trusting in myself, knowing that, say, even in work, in the in the jobs that you're doing as well, you're you've got to kind of tell yourself that this job, you're acquiring the skills and the knowledge to get yourself somewhere else down the track. It just in case you feel like you're not, you haven't made the right decision and you're not in a good place currently. You can put things in place to get somewhere else, and I think that's really important. And that was something that I really struggled with. I had quite a lot of success, I would say, in my teen years with sport and with music and being involved in lots of things. And then when I left school, so when I was talking about the transitions, then not having that was extremely discouraging.
No, I understand that. Because I always, probably much like yourself, I always played a team sport or a sport while I was at school, and not having something like that to exert you negative. I use it to exert negative energy as well, and it's also a very good distraction.
Yes. From
certain things that might be on your mind, and not being able to do that and have that when you need it is extremely difficult. I still struggle to find an answer how to actually overcome that, and because I always find, for me, I need to be consistent in something I do to be alright. And it's hard. That's why I go to the gym 3 to 4 times a week, because purely that puts me in a great headspace. It's like playing sport at school,
and also knowing, and I think you've been great in saying that you already know what's healthy for you, and what keeps your mind healthy, basically. So I think that's really really important.
I mean, do you have anything you could probably add along the lines of when you don't have something that you can reach out to when you're struggling?
Yes.
Is there anything you do?
You know what? I have always gone to the medium of music, only because I've identified that it's something that's really important for me. I think it's such an amazing creative industry and space.
100%.
Yeah. And because sometimes actually saying, hey, I'm really struggling right now, I need some help, is really difficult. But it's about little steps. And if you find a song or something that you can relate to that can get you through something, I think is really, really powerful. But yeah, I've always found that I've maybe a bit of a mistake in a way, but sometimes keeping busy for me, I mean, it's part of my life. I love keeping busy, but sometimes you forget about yourself, and it can be a bit detrimental, and it builds up, at least for me. And then I just kind of crash, and it's a bit, I'm in a tough place, but
along the lines,
music.
Along the lines of music, I mean, that was kind of how you came about wanting to be a part of the show.
Yes.
Maybe you want to briefly explain to me why I touched base with you, like it, how it had an effect on yourself, like.
Yeah, I think I was really pleased to see someone my age as well. Writing a song, I think it's so important. It's such, like I said, it's such a creative kind of thing to be able to do, but you also, it's not like writing anything else, it comes from the heart and it's quite emotional. So yeah, I did come across your song through your social media.
Yeah, for those who are listening in, I actually put a song together when I was going through a purple patch. It was between probably a 12 to 18 month period with this Canadian bloke that I made contact with like in year 9 on SoundCloud, and I've never stopped talking to him since, and he was happily enough to put an acoustic song together, and for me it was the best way of kind of sharing with people how I was feeling at the time. And listening back to it now, I can't really relate to some of the lyrics because it's quite deep, and it was a dark place, but it made me feel so good. But go on, sorry.
Yeah, no, and I think that's really important, and also very interesting that you say now it's hard for you to maybe relate to that, but the powerful thing I think about music is that at one point in time, and at least for me when I heard it related to my situations. So I think that's such an amazing thing about music.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone's equal, and music doesn't discriminate, you know, so it touches everyone. So for me, that's been extremely therapeutic, and in situations where I felt really anxious.
No, I get that. I think music is probably the most powerful thing.
Yeah.
To help you in situations like that. I mean, like Boy and Bear and like, you know, they've helped me a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, just if you listen to the lyrics, it's just so inspiring. You know, like it's hard to explain, but unless you find a song where you can really connect to, it's awesome. You know.
Yeah, it is. I think and I mean, I'll always have music in my life, so that's very important.
Yep.
But yeah, also the times that I felt really anxious, I like to read, so that's kind of, I think also when you do that as well, and reading's not for everyone, but I mean, listening to podcasts is great.
100%.
You know, if you're on the way to work or whatever, but in those situations, you do realize that you know, other people have gone before me.
Yes.
And they have had experiences that you can draw on.
Yeah.
Because no one is perfect and everyone's learning.
Yeah. And may I ask? I mean, I don't know personally if you're still struggling with the thought of trust.
Yes.
Within yourself or with someone else. But have you put anything in place now that has helped? I mean, you've spoken about how you use music.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you've used that's actually helped you alleviate some of the stress load of not being able to trust?
Yeah. For me, you know, I'm thinking about a specific situation now, and because I've always been quite an independent person.
Yep.
I've always had to focus on, I think, personal growth, but that also comes over time.
Yeah. You
can't do that overnight.
Yeah.
But I think with trust, I've had to kind of remind myself of, like I said, my values. Also being respectful of other people's differences. So I think my number one key for trust would be to not judge. Because I think in a relationship, it doesn't really matter, you know, whether or not something is important to an individual. The fact that it's important is all that matters.
Yep.
And I think first, before you can trust someone, you know, you really have to respect that. Respect it and respect it and listen. So that's my number one thing, to not judge. So it's not necessarily something practical I put in place, but I do remind myself of that.
Yep.
So yeah, that's probably my number one go-to when it comes to trust. But yeah, I keep doing me. I think that's really important as well.
You don't want to change yourself for anyone.
No.
I know for a fact it's very easy to do that. I mean, sometimes you want to please someone and that they're not happy with yourself, who you are. Yeah. And that does build a lack of trust up. But you've just got to remind yourself that you don't. Obviously, you've got to make room for compromising sometimes, but your makeup, you don't want to change who you are as a person.
No.
You've got to stick to, you know, the genes of who you are.
Yeah.
And just be happy with who you are.
Yeah.
And, you know.
I think on a more practical level, you know, and have been reminded by close friends as well, you do have to take a step back and kind of look at the situation, you know, like you're you know, someone else. You know, and be really real.
That's good.
Be really real with yourself.
Actually, I've never heard of that one before, but it does make sense, because then you're thinking from an outsider's perspective, as opposed to I'm in a relationship with this person, or I'm having struggles with this particular mate of mine. Yeah. But thinking of it from an outsider's perspective, it is actually quite interesting, because then you probably do get you actually start to think of the right thing to do. Yeah. And it is interesting, because obviously no one, like we've already said that no one else is in your relationship. Yeah. But I'm talking from just being real, being a bit of a realist in the situation. You know, what would you do or say if your emotions weren't kind of entangled in the whole thing, I think is really important. So yeah, that's kind of something that I think about. Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, is there anything else you wanted to touch base on today? It doesn't have to be on the topic of trust. It could be anything regarding mental health, or if you've gone to something that's actually helped you, whether it be like seeing a psychologist or anything in general. If you want, the stage is yours. If you want to share anything, to let others know, feel free.
Yeah. And I think, well, I mean, I've seen psychologists in the past, and for me, it was the best thing ever.
Yep.
Like I said, extremely emotional.
Yep.
That's also not for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Everyone has really, really different experiences with that. And again, that's a level of trust that needs to be built. And I think that any psychologist that can really tap into that and into a person's emotions and really have a strong relationship.
Yes.
And build trust really quickly is amazing. I really and I admire the girl that I've seen so much.
Well, it's funny you say that, because if you don't actually have that level of trust with a health professional, it's actually really hard to actually get better.
Yes.
And for this particular instance, if you got a lack of trust in a psychologist, and they're telling you certain things that you probably should try to implement within your life, you're probably going to be a bit apprehensive of doing these certain things, and because you're not really open to sharing everything that you're actually feeling within the inside, as opposed to someone who you're completely comfortable with. You don't care what you say, they won't judge you, and you're open to making a change and taking on board some of the stuff that they're telling you to do.
Because I think in those situations when you feel like you don't want to share what you're going through, you kind of sit there and you think, oh, how could this person ever know what I've been through? So I can see why there's a lot of reservation for a lot of people to see psychologists, and like I said, it's not for everyone. But it's never the end, and there's always support around. But it also takes time for people to, I think, realize that. I think just for everyone to know that they're not alone, and it's important to keep having these conversations. What I did find when I did see a psychologist, like I said, first time, very emotional, but it was one of those things that I had to do regularly. And on those regular kind of appointments and catch-ups, half the time I didn't have anything to say. Just felt, why am I here?
I get that.
Yeah, but if I had left it, I would have been back to square one, and back in quite an emotional.
It's one of those things where maybe at the time you don't think it's a big thing, but even just sharing it will make a huge difference.
Yes.
Because like you said, if you're not willing to just share something that you're not sure whether or not it's actually having a negative or positive impact on you, you're just back to square one. Like, you may as well not be seeing a health professional if you can't do that for yourself. So maybe that's something that you guys, if you're struggling, could be open to giving a go. Just sharing with someone something that you don't know if it actually is having a negative impact on you, and maybe give it a couple of days and see if it's actually put you in a better mood and mindset.
Yeah, and I think again, it's hard to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And that's probably the biggest thing. And I'm not a male, so I can't talk about that as well. But I think for men's mental health as well, that's probably something that's quite a hard thing to, and being vulnerable doesn't really equal masculinity or non-masculinity or whatever. That's really important, and I think everyone needs to get over that a bit. Because we all have. I mean, it's easier to say. It's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to say, get over it. But what I mean by that is, everyone has a right to feel emotional.
Yeah.
And to open up and talk about things.
Yeah, in that times have changed, and we're at a stage now where no one's going to judge you, and if they do, I can guarantee you that they're struggling themselves, but they're just not willing to open up and share their struggle.
Yeah, exactly.
But, is there anything else you wanted to mention today, or is that pretty much everything you wanted to touch base on?
I think that's pretty much everything. I'm really happy that I was able to come.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, because I mean, the more the merrier. If anyone's willing to open up that's listening in as well, just chuck me a message, because I'm not going to say no, because we need to, whatever topic we go through, we just want to make a difference and make people feel comfortable just sharing it. So
yeah,
again, Gabby, I really appreciate you, coming in today and just sharing what you feel comfortable sharing in regards to trust and anything along the lines of the mental health realm. So, like I said, if this has touched base with yourself, please feel free to message us via the Couch in the Mind Facebook page, or hit us up on Instagram, Snapchat. You can listen to us via SoundCloud or even Gmail. But again, this has been fantastic. It's actually been really therapeutic for me too, because it's touched base on a lot of things that I have been faced with as well. So no, honestly, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So so this has been episode 5 of Couch in the Mind, clearing the mind, one couch talk at a time, and the topic that we went through today was trust. So hope you guys have had a fantastic weekend, and like I said, if this is touch base with you, please message me, and don't feel uncomfortable for sharing any negative thoughts or emotions with myself. So thanks very much, and we'll talk soon.